The late afternoon sun stretched long shadows across the streets of Ashfield, a bustling city on the northeastern coast. 9-year-old Lena Carter clutched her mother's hand as they exited the local public library. In Lena's other arm was a borrowed book about building simple robots, hugged tightly against her chest. Her large hazel eyes darted from face to face, soaking in the city's every detail with the curiosity only children possess. "Mom, look," she whispered, tugging her mother's sleeve. Her mother, Janelle, followed Lena's gaze. Just beneath the Grandview overpass, a man sat alone on the sidewalk, his back against a cold concrete wall. His clothing, though layered, was worn and faded, and his shoes, barely held together by fraying laces, were more holes than fabric. He wasn't like the others they often passed. There was something different. He sat upright, quiet, composed in a way that made him stand out. "That's the third day in a row," Lena murmured, her voice soft with concern. Janelle adjusted, her worn nurse's badge, the dark circles beneath her eyes giving away the double shift she had just pulled at Ashfield General Hospital. "I know, sweetheart," she replied gently. "Some people just don't have anywhere else to go." "But it's getting colder," Lena pressed, her brows furrowed. "And look at his shoes." Janelle gave her daughter's hand a squeeze, steering her forward. "We need to get home, baby. I have to make dinner before my night shift." But Lena resisted. She turned her head, her eyes still on the man under the bridge. "Dad always said we should help people when we can." That name, Derek, landed like a weight on Janelle's chest. A year had passed since her husband was killed in a construction site collapse, but the ache still lived in every room, every routine. She blinked quickly and smiled faintly at Lena. "Your father was a good man." They continued walking. The apartment they now called home was just a few blocks away, nestled in a cramped but clean building near the grocery store. Once, it had been lively with laughter and music. Now it often felt too quiet, haunted by the absence of Derek. Carter. As soon as they stepped inside, Lena disappeared into her bedroom. Janelle, weary but focused, began boiling water for pasta. She opened cabinets in rhythmic sequence, mind half on dinner, half still on the man under the bridge. "Mom?" She turned to see Lena standing in the kitchen doorway, clutching something, wrapped in an old towel. "Do you think—" Lena hesitated. "Do you think these would fit him?" Janelle blinked in surprise. Lena unfolded the towel to reveal a pair of solid brown work boots, well cared for, but clearly broken in. Derek's boots, the very ones he wasn't wearing on that tragic day. Janelle had kept them tucked away in the back of her closet, untouched, unable to part with them. "Lena," she said slowly, her voice catching, "these were your dad's. They're special." "I know." Lena's fingers traced the seams gently. "But he has better shoes now, right? Up in heaven?" She looked up with innocent, serious eyes. "That man doesn't." Janelle dropped to her knees in front of her daughter, cupping her face. "Honey, these are the last shoes your father ever wore to work. He took pride in them. That's why we should give them away," Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Dad used to say the most important things are meant to be shared." Janelle felt the tears rising and turned her face slightly, pretending to sniff at the sauce pot. "Let me think about it, okay?" That night, after Lena was fast asleep, Janelle sat alone in the living room with a mug of tea gone cold. She stared at a photograph of Derek, the same one that had sat on their table since Lena was born. His strong arm was wrapped around Lena's tiny body, his face aglow with pride. She reached out and touched the glass. "What would you do?" she whispered. She already knew the answer. He would have given the boots away in a heartbeat. The next morning, Janelle found Lena awake early, wrapping the boots carefully in old newspaper. She had even written a small note that read, "I hope these help. They used to belong to a very kind man." Janelle exhaled and smiled gently. After school, she said, placing a hand on Lena's head. We'll give them together. The look on Lena's face was brighter than anything Janelle had seen in months. What neither of them knew was that this quiet act of generosity would start a chain of events that would change their lives forever. The following afternoon, Lena burst out of the school doors, her backpack bouncing as she scanned the crowd for her mother. Janelle stood near the fence, still in her scrubs, her hair tied back and eyes tired from her morning shift, but smiling. Lena ran up to her breathlessly. "Did you bring them?" she asked, her voice filled with hope. Janelle nodded, tapping the canvas tote bag at her side. "Wrapped and ready. Are you sure about this, honey?" "I've never been more sure," Lena said with the kind of pure certainty only a child can possess. They walked quickly toward Grandview Overpass, Lena occasionally skipping ahead, then waiting for her mother to catch up. As they drew closer, Lena slowed. The man was still there, sitting cross-legged in the same spot. He looked just as he had before, quiet, dignified, and distant from the noise around him. What Lena and Janelle didn't know was that the man in question was not truly homeless. Beneath the scruffy clothes, weathered cap, and carefully crafted illusion sat Colin Whitaker, founder and CEO of Whitaker Dynamics, a tech empire valued in the billions. For years, Colin had practiced what he called immersion days. Once a month, he would walk among ordinary people, disguised in poverty, trying to observe the world unfiltered by his name or wealth. What began as a curiosity had, over time, become a search for something more, something he couldn't name. Today was the third day of his latest immersion. He had been preparing to leave, convinced nothing of value would emerge from this one, when he noticed the girl and her mother approaching. Lena walked up slowly, newspaper-wrapped bundle cradled in her arms. Janelle lingered a few steps behind, letting her daughter take the lead but staying close enough to intervene if needed. "Excuse me, sir," Lena said softly. Colin looked up, adjusting his expression to match the part he was playing. "Yes, young lady?" "I've seen you here 3 times now," Lena said, her voice growing steadier. "And your shoes, they're falling apart." Colin blinked. Most people passed him without a second glance. Her observation caught him off guard. He followed her gaze down to the torn sneakers he'd deliberately chosen to complete his look. "These were my dad's," Lena said, unwrapping the package to reveal the sturdy brown work boots. "He passed away last year, but I think you need them more than we do." Colin froze. He'd been offered spare change before, the occasional sandwich or blanket, but never something like this. Not something sacred. "I couldn't possibly," he began. "Please," Lena interrupted. "He always said warm feet helped people think better. He took care of these boots. A lot." Janelle stepped forward, placing her hand gently on Lena's shoulder. "It would mean a lot to us if you accepted them," she said quietly. Colin glanced from mother to daughter. Behind the disguise, his eyes suddenly stung. He reached out with trembling hands and took the boots, holding them as though they might break. "Thank you," he whispered, his voice cracking in a way he hadn't expected. "They might be a little big," Lena offered, her tone bright and hopeful. "But Dad said it's better to have room to grow." Janelle gave a small laugh, then guided Lena away. Colin watched them go, the tired woman in scrubs and the compassionate little girl with a gift that had pierced through every layer of his cynicism. For a long moment, he remained motionless, staring at the boots. Then he pulled out a disposable phone from his jacket pocket and dialed. "Vivian," he said to his personal assistant, "I need you to gather background on someone, a nurse named Janelle Carter at Ashfield General. She has a daughter, about 9. Discreetly, please." He ended the call and looked back toward the bridge. The sunlight had shifted. The city bustled around him, unaware that something monumental had just occurred beneath the overpass. What Lena Carter didn't know was that her small act of kindness had awakened something long dormant in a man the world thought had everything. And Colin Whitaker wasn't about to let that go. The next morning, as sunlight filtered through the kitchen blinds, Janelle stood by the sink rinsing out Lena's lunch container. Her phone buzzed on the counter with a notification. New message from Executive Office, Ashfield General. Frowning, she dried her hands and opened it. To Janelle Carter. Subject, Director's Office appointment. Dear Ms. Carter, you are requested to attend a meeting with Acting Director Colin Whitaker at 2 p.m. today in the Executive Wing. Her eyes widened. The Executive Wing? She barely stepped off her floor, let alone mingled with the top brass. Maybe it's about the staffing cuts, she murmured to herself, trying to steady her nerves. At work, she mentioned it to Tina, a colleague at the nurses' station. Colin Whitaker? Tina raised an eyebrow. Isn't he the guy who just took over everything when the hospital got bought out? Exactly, Janelle said. I've never even seen him in person. Well, Tina grinned. Try not to faint. If he's offering you a promotion, make sure he throws in a parking spot. Janelle managed to smile, but her nerves only deepened as she made her way upstairs. The executive wing was sleek and quiet, worlds apart from the controlled chaos of the pediatric floor. A receptionist guided her to a corner office. The nameplate read, C. Whitaker, Interim Director. She smoothed her scrubs and knocked gently. Come in, came a voice, low, calm, familiar in a way that sent a strange jolt down her spine, as Abanti. The door opened. Janelle stopped short. Standing behind the desk was the man from under the bridge, clean-shaven now, wearing a tailored suit and polished shoes. His silver-streaked hair was neatly styled. But his eyes... She recognized those eyes. It's you, she breathed. Colin stepped forward, extending his hand. Yes. Thank you for coming, Ms. Carter. Or... May I call you Janelle? She blinked, too stunned to speak. Her hand found his, automatically. I owe you and your daughter a proper explanation, he said, gesturing to the seat opposite his desk. Please, sit. Janelle lowered herself cautiously, her hands gripping her knees. Why the disguise? Why my daughter? Colin exhaled. For years I've conducted social experiments, disguising myself to understand how people truly live. It's not uncommon among people with means. Most ignore me. Some offer money. But your daughter... He trailed off, emotion thickening his voice. She gave me her father's boots, he continued. The last piece of him she had. For no reason other than kindness. That's not something you forget. Janelle felt her chest tighten. I looked into your file. Your performance here. Your patient reviews. Your attendance. Colin continued. Frankly, I was already impressed. But Lena's gift, it brought something to life in me that I thought I'd lost. He slid a folder across the desk. We're launching a pilot program, a scholarship fund for children of hospital staff. Lena would be the first recipient. Full tuition to Rosewood Academy, uniforms, supplies, transportation. Janelle blinked. Rosewood? It's the best preparatory school in Ashfield. She stared at the folder like it might bite. There's more, Colin said gently. I'd also like to offer you a promotion. Coordinator of Pediatric Services. Better hours. Triple your current salary. Janelle leaned back, overwhelmed. Why me? You've carried your family on your back while helping strangers every day, he said. This isn't a handout, Janelle. It's an investment. In Lena. In you. She opened the folder with trembling hands. The numbers on the offer made her head spin. For the first time in over a year, the future didn't look like a battlefield. It looked like a bridge. Still, her mind clung to one last doubt. This isn't because you feel guilty about the boots, is it? Colin gave a small, honest smile. No, it's because those boots reminded me what purpose feels like. That night, Janelle tucked Lena into bed and kissed her forehead. Mom? Lena asked drowsily. Do you think Dad knows we gave his boots away? Janelle sat beside her, brushing curls from her forehead. I think he knows, and I think he's proud. Outside their window, the streetlight flickered on. Change had arrived, and though it came disguised, it carried the quiet strength of worn-out boots and a little girl's heart. 3 days had passed since Lena and Janelle accepted Colin Whitaker's offer. Lena had visited Rosewood Academy for a tour, marveling at its robotics lab, library, and grassy quad where kids wore blazers and spoke about science projects as easily as games. Janelle had started the paperwork for her promotion and was cautiously optimistic about the move. But peace was short-lived. One morning, just as Janelle was pouring coffee before her shift, a sharp knock echoed at the apartment door. Lena looked up from her breakfast bowl. Were you expecting someone? She asked. No, Janelle said, frowning. She opened the door and immediately froze. Standing there were 2 professionally dressed individuals, a man and a woman, both, holding clipboards and ID badges. Ms. Carter? The woman asked. I'm Sandra Bell with Child Services. This is my colleague, James Niles. We're here following up on a formal complaint. Janelle's breath caught. Complaint? About what? We've received allegations regarding improper influence and possible exploitation involving Mr. Colin Whitaker and your daughter Lena, James said calmly. We'd like to ask you both a few questions and take a look around. Lena stood from her chair, worry in her big hazel eyes. Mom? Janelle instinctively moved in front of her daughter. Sweetheart, go finish your cereal. It's just some visitors with questions, okay? Once Lena was out of earshot, Janelle stepped into the hallway and lowered her voice. This is absurd. Who would even... But the answer came immediately. Patricia. Janelle's late husband's sister had been growing colder ever since the funeral. Though she had barely been present during Derek's illness or the months after, she suddenly grew vocal when she heard about the scholarship. Critical, suspicious, envious. Let me guess, Janelle said sharply. The complaint was filed by Patricia Reeves. The investigators exchanged glances but didn't confirm. We're not here to speculate, Sandra said. We just need to verify that Lena's living situation is safe and that there are no undue external pressures affecting her welfare. Reluctantly, Janelle opened the door and allowed them inside. They took photos, examined Lena's room, opened closets and cupboards. Lena sat on the couch, nervously holding her stuffed raccoon, Derek's last birthday gift to her. We'd like to ask Lena a few questions now, with your permission, James said. Janelle nodded tightly. Lena answered their questions politely. She spoke about how much she liked her new school, how she now had time to read because her mom didn't work night shifts anymore, and how she was part of the robotics club. After nearly an hour, the 2 agents thanked Janelle and promised to file their report within days. As soon as the door shut behind them, Janelle collapsed onto the couch. Her hands trembled as she picked up her phone. She barely had time to process the whirlwind before the screen lit up with a call from Colin Whitaker. I just got notified through security protocols, Colin said, his tone steady but deeply concerned. Are you and Lena all right? How did you know so fast? She asked, dazed. All official visits to employees' apartments are logged by the building system, he explained. Child Services flagged a security concern. She sent them, Janelle muttered. Patricia, she thinks you're manipulating us. There was a pause on the other end. Perhaps it's time we talk more openly. I think you deserve the full picture. Would you be willing to come by my office tomorrow? Janelle hesitated. She looked at her daughter, who was sitting on the rug now, quietly sketching a tiny pair of shoes on a notepad. Her heart ached. Maybe we should just walk away from this, she whispered. The scholarship, the apartment, the job. Maybe it's more trouble than it's worth. Please, Colin's voice softened. Just one meeting. After that, you decide. Later that evening, Janelle sat on the couch in silence, sipping lukewarm tea. In her bedroom, Lena stared at her tablet screen, a blank document open in front of her. She hadn't understood everything, but she knew this. Her Aunt Patricia was trying to take her away from her mom. Lena looked at the screen for a long time, then began typing. If the adults couldn't fix this, maybe she would. The next afternoon, Janelle stepped into the gleaming glass elevator of Whitaker Tower, rising swiftly to the 48th floor. Her stomach churned, not from the height, but from uncertainty. She held her handbag tight, trying to brace herself for whatever Colin had to say. His office was large but tastefully simple, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the cityscape, a sleek desk, and shelves lined with framed photos and old books. Colin rose as she entered, dressed down in a navy pullover and dark slacks, a clear shift from the boardroom persona she'd met earlier. "Thanks for coming," he said gently. "Would you like some coffee? Tea?" Janelle shook her head. "You said? There's something I should know." He nodded and walked around the desk, not behind it, but to the chair across from her. "Yes, and I wanted to say it face to face." He took a breath. 3 weeks ago, I was beneath that bridge as part of what I call an immersion. I've done these for years. I dress down, blend in, and sit in different places across the city, trying to understand the world that my wealth often isolates me from. Janelle leaned back slightly. "So you pretend to be homeless?" "Yes," he said without flinching, not to mock or deceive, but to listen, to see people. Usually I'm invisible, but Lena saw me. For 3 days. He stood and walked to a nearby shelf. He picked up a silver-framed photo and handed it to her. It was a woman, smiling, warm-eyed, sitting on a hospital bed surrounded by laughing children. "My wife," he said softly. "Ava. She was a pediatric oncologist at a children's clinic we funded. She passed away 2 years ago." Janelle's grip tightened on the frame. "She wanted to create a foundation," Colin continued. "One that gave kids from single-parent homes real opportunity, especially those with potential but no resources. We dreamed it up together. But when she died," he exhaled. "I shelved it. Couldn't bear to look at it." He looked at her, now, his voice firm but raw. "Then Lena gave me Derek's boots. And everything came back. Her kindness reminded me of what Ava believed in, of what I promised her." Janelle's eyes burned with tears. "I didn't tell you earlier," he said, "because I didn't want to manipulate you. I needed you to believe that the offer was based on merit, which it is. But now, with everything Patricia's doing, you deserve to know the full truth." Before Janelle could respond, a knock interrupted them. Vivian, Colin's assistant, stepped inside, tense. "I'm sorry to interrupt. But Patricia Reeves is downstairs in the lobby. She's demanding to speak with Mr. Whitaker. She says if she isn't let up, she'll go to the press." Colin sighed. "Let her up. It's time." "No, wait. Colin." Janelle stood, mortified. "I am so sorry. She's not stable. You don't need to apologize for her," he said quietly. Moments later, Patricia burst through the door. Her heels clicked like accusations on the marble floor. Her expression was cold and furious, and she stopped dead when she saw Janelle. "Course," Patricia snapped. "You're here. What a surprise." "Lena's at school," Janelle said calmly, "where she belongs. You think I'm going to stand by and watch you sell her future for a penthouse and a private school?" Patricia turned to Colin. "What do you really want with my niece, Mr. Whitaker?" Colin stood still. "I want to honor a promise I made to my wife." "Oh, spare me," Patricia sneered. "I know all about Ava. I looked you up. You lost. Your wife, and now you're using a child to replace what you lost." The room fell deathly quiet. Janelle flinched, horrified. "Patricia, that's enough." But Colin remained calm, steady. "You're not entirely wrong," he said. "This is about Ava, but not the way you think." He walked to the window, then turned back. "She died wanting to build something that mattered. I failed her. Until Lena reminded me why it mattered in the first place." His voice broke just slightly. "Your niece did something kind. Purely kind. No cameras, no press, just heart. That kind of spirit deserves to be nurtured." Patricia's mask cracked for the first time. She looked between them, then at the photograph still in Janelle's hands. "The question isn't what I want from you," Colin said. "It's what you want for Lena." Back at Rosewood Academy, Lena sat alone at the lunch table. Her salad sat untouched. Her robot project was due soon, but she couldn't concentrate. Across the table, Ruby, a girl from her robotics club, sat down. "You okay?" she asked. Lena shrugged. Ruby opened her bento box. "You don't talk much lately. You're the best in robotics. Did something happen?" Lena stared at the table. "Do you think people help others just to be nice? Or do they always want something?" Ruby chewed thoughtfully. "I think people usually have a reason. But that doesn't mean it's a bad un." Lena nodded faintly. She'd heard her mom say Mr. Whitaker was the man under the bridge, and she hadn't known what to feel ever since. In science class later that day, their teacher announced an assignment. "Write about someone you admire, your personal hero." Lena stared at her blank screen. A year ago, she would have written about her dad, no question. But now everything felt more complicated. She put her pencil down and walked to the hallway to get a drink. She needed air. Space. Down the corridor, she heard voices, a tour group passing. She turned and froze. Colin Whitaker stood among the adults. But he wasn't dressed as a stranger this time. He looked like a CEO, like someone who didn't belong in her world. Their eyes met, and Lena ran the other way. The next day, an announcement crackled through the intercom at Rosewood Academy. "All students and faculty, please report to the auditorium for a special presentation by Mr. Colin Whitaker and the Whitaker Foundation." Lena walked with her class, head down, her thoughts swirling. As they filed into the grand auditorium, she took a seat in the back row, far from the stage. On stage, Colin stood beside the principal and several foundation board members, speaking confidently to the crowd. "At Whitaker Dynamics, we believe in nurturing the next generation of thinkers and dreamers," he said, "which is why we're expanding our educational initiatives, starting right here at Rosewood." He smiled as he looked out across the students. Lena quickly turned away when his gaze passed over her. Later, as students flooded out of the assembly, she slipped quietly to the pickup area, relieved to spot her mom's car already waiting. "How was school?" Janelle asked as Lena climbed in. "Fine," Lena answered, then hesitated. "Mom, is Mr. Whitaker doing all this stuff just because I gave him Dad's boots?" Janelle looked at her, surprised by the question. "It's more complicated than that, sweetheart. I think the boots reminded him of something important he'd forgotten." "But does he actually care about us?" Lena asked, her voice cracking. "Or are we just a project for him?" Janelle sighed deeply. "I believe he cares, but I also know it's okay to ask questions. You're smart to wonder, honey." Lena stared out the window. "I miss when things were simple." Back at Whitaker Tower, Vivian dropped a stack of quarterly reports on Colin's desk and crossed her arms. "You need to stop hiding behind boardrooms," she said bluntly. Colin looked up from his computer. "Excuse me?" "The Carters," Vivian clarified. "Lena's been avoiding you. Janelle's rescheduled your last 2 meetings. And Patricia, she's not done yet." Colin leaned back. "You want them to trust you?" Vivian continued. "Then, stop acting like a CEO. Invite them into your real life. Let them see you." That evening, Colin made the call himself. When Janelle answered, her voice was cautious. "Mr. Whitaker?" "Please, call me Colin," he said. "I was wondering, would you and Lena join me for dinner? At my home. Nothing formal, just a conversation." There was a long pause. Then she replied, "I think that might be helpful. Lena has questions I can't answer." 2 days later, Janelle's small car pulled up to the gated entrance of a brownstone in Ashfield's historic Beacon Row. Lena sat quietly in the passenger seat, her notebook in her lap. "This house is huge," she whispered as they walked up the steps. "Do you think he gets lonely?" The question made Janelle glance at her daughter. "I don't know, honey. Maybe we'll find out." Colin greeted them at the door, dressed in jeans and a gray sweater, his expression warm, but slightly nervous. "Thank you for coming." The interior of the home surprised them both. It wasn't cold or flashy. It was warm, with shelves of books, photos of smiling children, and comfortable furniture. In the kitchen, Vivian was arranging vegetables. "I thought I'd help out before leaving," she said with a wink. Colin's a great cook, but easily distracted. Dinner was light and pleasant. Conversation flowed from Lena's school projects to Janelle's new role at the hospital. But as they moved to the living room for dessert, Colin grew quiet. "Owe you both a more personal explanation," he said, "especially about why your kindness meant so much." He took a deep breath. "I grew up in foster care," he began. "My parents died when I was 8. No relatives stepped up. I bounced from home to home. It wasn't easy. Books and libraries became my world." Janelle sat forward slightly, her brow softening. "I built Whitaker Dynamics with loans, scholarships, and more than a little desperation," Colin continued. "When Ava, my wife, came into my life, everything changed. She grounded me. She made me believe in something more than success." He paused, looking toward a photo of Ava on the mantel. "She passed away 2 years ago. Cancer. Before she died, we talked about building a foundation for kids like me. But when I lost her, I couldn't face it." Lena's voice broke the silence. "Did she like helping kids too?" Colin smiled, visibly moved. "It was her whole life. She was a pediatric oncologist. She believed every child mattered. Everyone deserved a chance." He turned to them both. "Your act of kindness, Lena. It wasn't just boots. It was a wake-up call. You reminded me what I'd forgotten, and it pushed me to finally keep the promise I made her." The room was quiet. Janelle reached over and placed her hand on Lena's back. The air had cleared. For the first time, Lena looked up at Colin without confusion, only understanding. But not everyone was ready to let go. On a gray, rainy Tuesday, Janelle returned home from a hospital shift to find a certified letter in her mailbox. She tore it open and froze. "Petition for temporary guardianship. Filed by Patricia Reeves." Janelle sank into a chair, her hands shaking. "She can't do this," she whispered. "She can't take my daughter." She called a family attorney, a former colleague of Derek's. "It's a weak case," he assured her. "But you'll need a strong legal response. Patricia has resources." The doorbell rang again. Janelle answered, expecting trouble. Instead, a Rosewood security officer stood with Lena. "Ms. Carter, Lena insisted on coming home early. Said it was an emergency." Lena rushed inside. "Aunt Patricia came to my school. She was asking my teachers questions about you, about Mr. Whitaker, taking photos of the robotics lab." Before Janelle could react, the doorbell rang again. This time it was Patricia, with a stern-looking lawyer in tow. "I assume the school called you?" Patricia said coolly. "This is Frank Delaney, my attorney. We're here to discuss the petition." "You had no right to go to Lena's school," Janelle said, voice shaking. "You're terrifying her." "I'm protecting her," Patricia snapped. "You've handed her over to a man you barely know." "I helped him first," Lena shouted, stepping between them. Mr. Whitaker is helping us because I gave him something. Because I wanted to. Patricia turned to her, trying to soften her voice. Sweetheart, you're too young to understand. Men like him don't talk to me like I'm a baby, Lena interrupted. You're not doing this for Dad. You're doing this for you. Everyone froze. Then came another knock. Colin stood in the doorway, Vivian at his side. I'm sorry to intrude, he said. Vivian got an alert from school security. I just wanted to make sure Lena was okay. Patricia's eyes narrowed. How convenient. You show up just in time to play the hero. Colin didn't rise to the bait. I came to support, that's all. Any legal help is yours to accept or refuse, Janelle. His calmness threw Patricia off. She turned to Lena. You really trust him? Lena nodded. He's not the bad guy, Aunt Pat. And neither is Mom. The room was silent. The balance had shifted. But the petition was still active, and court was coming. The morning of the court hearing dawned gray and tense. Rain drizzled over the stone steps of the Ashfield family court, where Janelle and Lena climbed slowly, hand in hand. Janelle wore her most formal outfit, a navy blazer borrowed from a friend, and Lena wore a dress she hadn't worn since her last school recital. Her small hand was warm, but her grip was tight. Remember what Mr. Bernard said, Janelle whispered, referring to the seasoned family attorney Colin's foundation had retained. Just be honest. The judge wants what's best for you. Lena nodded solemnly, her eyes taking in the towering courthouse. She looked impossibly small next to the high doors, but her back was straight. Inside, Judge Elena Marlowe presided. A woman with silver-streaked hair and eyes sharp as a scalpel, she scanned the petition with professional detachment. Patricia sat at the opposite table, dressed to impress in a beige suit, flanked by her lawyer. She avoided looking at Janelle, or Lena. Patricia's lawyer went first. Your Honor, Ms. Carter has accepted lavish gifts from a billionaire who appears to have taken a troubling interest in her child. She has moved her daughter to a new school, changed her living situation, and allowed a stranger to become intertwined in her daughter's education and well-being. These actions raise serious concerns of influence and dependency. He gestured to the stack of documents in front of him. This petition seeks temporary guardianship to ensure that Lena Carter's best interests are safeguarded during further investigation. Janelle's attorney, Mr. Bernard, stood calmly. With respect, Your Honor, the petitioner has not had consistent contact with the child since her father's passing. Ms. Carter, by contrast, has maintained flawless attendance at work, provided a stable home, and has acted in her daughter's best interests every step of the way. He laid out documentation, Lena's academic progress, glowing teacher evaluations, and medical records. Then came the final blow. The foundation in question is fully audited, with oversight boards. Ms. Carter's promotion and Lena's scholarship were granted based on merit and are publicly verifiable. There is no evidence of coercion, misconduct, or exploitation. Judge Marlowe listened without expression, then looked toward Lena. I understand the child wishes to speak, she said. Mr. Bernard nodded. Lena, the judge said kindly, do you understand what this hearing is about? Lena stood. Her dress shifted slightly as she moved to the front of the room. Janelle's heart pounded. Yes, Your Honor, Lena said, voice small but steady. My aunt wants to take me away from my mom because she thinks Mr. Whitaker is doing something bad. There was a murmur in the courtroom. And what do you think? The judge asked gently. Lena hesitated, then took a deep breath. I think she doesn't understand what happened. She glanced back at Patricia, then looked down at her. Shoes. I saw a man under a bridge for 3 days. He looked tired and cold. His shoes were falling apart. I didn't know he was rich. I just thought his feet must hurt. She paused. So I gave him my dad's boots. They were special. But my dad always said, help people when you can. The courtroom was silent now. That man turned out to be Mr. Whitaker. He told us, my gift reminded him of someone he loved, and it made him want to help other kids like me. She looked up, eyes glistening. I think he needs kindness too. Like we do. The judge leaned forward, visibly moved. And your aunt? Lena was quiet for a long moment. I think Aunt Patricia misses my dad, and she's scared of losing more family. But taking me away from my mom won't fix that. She turned, facing Patricia directly. Dad said family helps, not hurts. If you really want to honor him, this isn't the way. Patricia blinked rapidly. Her lips trembled. For the first time, she looked like someone not angry, but broken. Judge Marlowe folded her hands. I've heard enough. Her voice was clear and decisive. This court finds no evidence of parental misconduct, neglect, or undue influence. The petition for temporary guardianship is denied. Full custody remains with Ms. Janelle Carter. She removed her glasses. And, Ms. Reeves, I encourage you to reflect deeply on how best to preserve your connection to this family. Outside the courthouse, Janelle wrapped her arms around Lena, tears slipping down her cheeks. I'm so proud of you, baby. Lena leaned into her. Do you think Aunt Patricia will be okay? Janelle glanced back. Patricia sat alone on a bench, shoulders hunched, her lawyer gone. The rain had stopped, but the sky still hung heavy. I hope so, Janelle said softly. I really do. In the days that followed, Colin kept a respectful distance, relying on Vivian to send quiet updates. He didn't call. He didn't press. But he worried. At Rosewood, Lena noticed his absence. One afternoon during science club, she approached her teacher. Mr. Dyson, she asked, can we invite people to the science fair? Of course, he replied. Parents, friends, anyone you want. Lena smiled thoughtfully. Can I send my own invitation? Absolutely. That evening, while Janelle stirred a pot of soup, Lena curled up with her tablet and wrote a short, simple email. Dear Mr. Whitaker, I'm presenting my project at the science fair next Thursday at 4 p.m. It's called The Cycle of Kindness. I thought you might want to see it, since you're part of the experiment. Sincerely, Lena Carter, she hit send before she could overthink it, and tucked the tablet away with a flutter of hope. The day of the Rosewood Academy Science Fair arrived with clear skies and a quiet kind of excitement humming in the air. The gymnasium had been transformed into a gallery of student projects, each one neatly displayed on folding tables with colorful titles and diagrams. Lena stood by her project nervously, fingers fidgeting with the hem of her dress. Her board displayed the title in large letters, The Cycle of Kindness, How One Act Can Change a Life. Her model was made of interconnected levers and small figures. A button, when pressed, triggered a domino effect of actions. Someone holding a door, someone giving a gift, someone smiling to a stranger. In the middle sat a tiny replica of a worn pair of boots. Janelle arrived just as the judging began. She wrapped Lena in a warm hug. This looks incredible, she whispered, admiring the detail. Lena, however, kept glancing toward the entrance. Are you expecting someone else? Janelle asked. Before Lena could respond, a ripple of murmurs spread through the room. Heads turned. Colin Whitaker had arrived. He wasn't flanked by security or dressed in his usual designer suit. Instead, he wore jeans and a simple jacket, hands in his pockets, and a modest smile on his face. Lena's eyes lit up. You came. I wouldn't miss it, Colin replied, nodding to Janelle in greeting. Thank you for the invitation. Lena launched into her presentation with new confidence. It's called The Cycle of Kindness, she explained. When someone does something nice, without expecting anything back, it can cause a ripple effect. Like this. She pressed a button. The little boot figure tipped forward, pushing another. A small figure helped another up. A handshake. A shared lunch. A hug. My dad used to say, Kindness is like sunlight. It spreads where it shines. Colin watched, genuinely moved. And these boots? Lena gestured to the centerpiece. Belonged to my dad. I gave them away. And that small thing? It changed our lives. By now, a crowd had gathered. Teachers, students, and even judges leaned in, captivated. Mr. Dyson, her science teacher, beamed with pride. This project, he said, has been selected for the Regional Young Innovators Showcase. Not just for its design, but for the heart behind it. Applause followed. Lena blushed but smiled wide. Afterward, as the fair wound down and families trickled out, Janelle found herself walking alongside Colin toward the parking lot. Lena skipped ahead with her award certificate clutched tightly. "Thank you," Janelle said quietly. "For coming." "Thank you," Colin replied. "For allowing me." They stopped beside her car. Lena turned back, hopeful. "Mom, can Mr. Whitaker come for dinner sometime?" Janelle looked at Colin. Not the billionaire, not the stranger under the bridge, just a man who had suffered, grown, and kept a promise. "I think that can be arranged," she said softly. A week later, a knock came on their apartment door. When Janelle opened it, she found Patricia, but not the defiant, judgmental woman from court. Her hair was tied back, her makeup light. In her arms was a worn leather photo album. "I found this," she said quietly. "Photos of Derek from when we were kids. I thought, maybe Lena should have it." Janelle hesitated, then stepped aside. "We just finished breakfast. Come in." Lena's eyes widened when she saw her aunt. "Aunt Patricia?" "Hey, sweetie." Patricia gave a tentative smile. "You look well." They sat around the kitchen table, flipping through the album. Photos of Derek playing baseball, posing, in front of an old truck, laughing at a family cookout. "I took the album after the funeral," Patricia admitted. "I was angry, jealous. I convinced myself you didn't deserve what he left behind." Janelle was quiet. "But I've been thinking a lot about what Lena said in court," Patricia continued, her voice breaking. "About honoring Derek by helping, not hurting. And she was right." She looked across the table, eyes filled with regret. "If there's room for me to be part of your lives again, I'd like to try, properly, as family." Janelle reached across the table and placed her hand gently over Patricia's. "We could start with Sunday dinners," she said. "One step at a time." At Whitaker Tower, Colin faced another kind of trial, the quarterly board meeting. "You're pouring resources into this foundation," one director complained. "Our focus should be Asia-Pacific expansion, not charity." Colin stood calmly and clicked the projector. Images filled the screen. Lena presenting her project, a scholarship recipient receiving their uniform, a mentorship session in progress. "ROI? Greatest ROI isn't in global acquisitions," Colin said. "It's in impact, real lives, real stories." He pointed to the final slide, Lena standing beside her project, smiling with her award. "If a 9-year-old can understand how kindness spreads, so can we." Silence. Then a slow nod from the oldest board member. "You've changed, Colin, and this company might be better for it." 6 months later, the Shoes of Hope Foundation opened its doors in a renovated brownstone in downtown Ashfield. It offered scholarships, mentoring, family support, and something more. Lena stood at the ribbon cutting, flanked by Janelle and Colin. Dozens of reporters gathered. "These shoes," Lena said into the microphone, pointing at the foundation's logo, 2 simple brown boots, "are about more than walking. They're about seeing people and helping them walk forward." Applause erupted. Inside the building, a display case held the original boots. Polished, protected, and respected. On Lena's 10th birthday, they gathered in the foundation's garden. Janelle, Colin, Patricia, Vivian, Lena's friends, and other scholarship kids. The cake had little sugar boots on top, Patricia had baked it herself. "Make a wish, sweetheart," Janelle said. Lena closed her eyes, then blew out the candles. Later that night, as they sat together under the stars, Janelle on one side, Colin on the other, Lena leaned her head against her mother's shoulder. "Do you think Dad knows what happened because of his boots?" Janelle smiled, her voice soft with emotion. "I believe he does," Colin added quietly. "Maybe he and Ava are watching it together." Lena nodded, content. Inside, the spotlight still shone on Derek's boots, and beneath them, a small plaque read, "1 small step of kindness can carry 1,000 more."